In this lesson, we're going to talk about bass drum tuning. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can approach the tuning of your bass drum, given that there's a lot of different bass drum sizes available and a lot of different bass drum heads available, each with their different qualities. We're going to look at two types of bass drum tuning today. The first is open bass drum tuning. So that means getting the drum to sing more like it was a tom-tom. And that is opposed to the punchy, shorter type of bass drum note used in rock and fusion and things like that, which really delivers that bottom end punch without giving too much tone and interfering with the sort of mids and highs in the music. So again, we're going to start with the open tone, which is sort of a tuning method used in jazz and well, certain styles of music, again, that they basically you approach the drum kit more melodically rather than just rhythmically and texturally. So we'll start with the batter head. That is the head that we actually beat. I've got a brand new skin here. It's completely untuned, completely dead tone. The tuning lugs have just enough tension in them to hold, well, to basically hold themselves on and not give off a rattle. So what I'll do is get my extra keys here for the bottom two tension rods. So let's talk about the skin and what sort of muffling we're going to do. This is a coated Emperor bass drum head, which means it's coated sandpapery sort of finish, and 2-ply as opposed to my tom-tom and snare drum heads, which is the coated Ambassador, which is a 1-ply coated head. So this will give us, it's not an extremely thick head, even though it is 2-ply. Not as thick as something like a Power Stroke or something like that, which can really affect the sound. This is sort of a medium weight, classed as a medium weight head. And again, that's because instead of changing heads, I like to be able to tune it up for the open tone and down for the lower sort of boomy notes. So let's start tuning these lugs. We'll give them about a half turn each. Okay, going from I tune two at a time personally, and move to the furthest opposite lugs. Just about a half turn each there. Being pretty rough with it at first, seeing if there's any tone in there now. Okay, so we've got that big old goofy bass drum tone. I'm going to tune it up a bit more so we get more of a tom-tom, like maybe a floor tom sounding note. Okay, what we'll have to do now, the way the drum's sitting, the bottom head, the resonant head, is actually resonating, even though it's pretty near the carpet. So what I'm going to do is raise the bass drum onto my knee, so we can, just so we can listen to the batter head. So again, the resonant head resting on my knee, just listening to the batter head. What I'm going to do is use one of the tuning lugs. Start bashing about the outer flank of the skin for where the tuning points are. So I think because I've given it an even amount of tones, I'm getting a pretty even sort of tone from all the different areas of the drum. Let me just tune it up slightly more. And this is probably already way higher than some people tune their bass drum, by the way. Some people like their bass drum tuning to be basically dead and let all the basically all the force of the air for their drum to create their note through the microphones. So we've got a nice open note there. Let me go around to the resonant head and check what note we've got. So again, my knee is resting on the batter head now. I'm just going to listen to the resonant head, which does have the microphone hole in it. It's so that the microphone picks up the sound pressure escaping from the drum. I'll just have a quick listen. Okay, completely, well, almost a completely dead sound. But this head is actually tuned. It's tuned to my lower style of tuning. To get that big boomy sound, and it is a different sort of head. It is a Remo Power Stroke 3, which is, I believe, a 1-ply head with a thick reinforcing ring around the edge, sort of hidden inside the drum, which takes away a lot of the overtones. So in theory it's a slightly thicker head, but only one ply, and so it's, again, what I'm going to do is just tune it up a little bit. It'll sound a lot different to the batter head. So you can hear, even though it's a very different type of waveform, it is producing a very audible note. So let's compare that note again to the batter head. Okay, so the batter head is actually slightly flat. But before I go any further, I want to put this into context, because of course just tapping the tuning areas of the head with tuning keys isn't quite the same as hammering it with a bass drum beater. So let me place the drum and attach the beater. Okay, so a really nice open, throaty sort of tone. What I'm going to do is actually tune the batter head up just a little bit to see if I can't match it to the resonant head. So what I'll do is disconnect the pedal again, and just get a quick reference tone from the resonant head. Mute my resonant head, listen to the batter head, bring it up somewhere close to the fundamental tone of the resonant head. Okay, we're pretty close now. Okay, so we're getting a nice big open tone from that drum now. And some of you might be thinking that's way too open. It sounds way too much like a tom-tom. But let's just listen to the open tone bass drum used in a jazz context. Okay, now that we've heard the open tone from the bass drum, let's go ahead and change to a lower, more boomy and punchy bass note. So again, this is a 20-inch drum. I like the 20-inch size because it's quite capable of getting both sounds. So let's detune these heads basically down to zero now. Get my other key. And so we'll take I'll do two at a time, all the way down till they become loose and maybe even rattle around a bit. We're going to remove all the tone and take the tuning back to zero, and then start from there. Same thing with the batter head. Flip it over. Okay, so again, both heads are completely dead. They've just got enough tension to get rid of the rattle, so that the hoop and the tension bolt are just pulling towards one another. Let me mount the pedal and see what sort of sound we're getting. Okay, nice big open thud there, pretty close to the John Bonham sound actually. But it's got some overtones in there that I'm probably going to want to kill. You've got this fundamental punch, and then it's sort of getting surrounded by these slightly sort of trebly or mid-range sort of tones. And they sort of they colour the attack in a different way. So what we're going to do is treat the drum with some padding. Now there's a few different ways you can do this. Probably the first step is to have a hole cut in your bass drum. As you will see, I do have the sort of standard 4-inch hole here cut. You can of course buy your skins with the hole pre-cut. This hole, sorry, I cut myself. I use a compass-like hole cutter specifically designed to cut bass drum holes. And I do recommend it. I can't for the life of me remember the model, but I have seen bass drum holes cut with knives, but it's a little bit tricky to cut a perfectly round hole, even if you do have a steady hand. So I do recommend trying to either buy a resonant bass drum head with the hole, which is also used for microphoning the drum, or again, if you know what you're doing, you may cut your own bass drum hole, but beware, bass drum heads cost a bit of money, so measure twice, cut once, as they say. So what I'm going to do is put a little bit of material inside the drum. What you can use is an old blanket or an old towel. Some people even go as far as putting a whole pillow, a sleeping pillow, inside the bass drum. The pillow is a bit too much for me because I find that it soaks up too much of the bass drum's natural tone, so I'm just going to use some nasty old blankets and sheets here. What I'm going to do is put them inside the drum just far enough so that they touch each of the blankets. I've got 2 separate blankets in there, and each of the blankets is touching both the batter and the resonant head, or each of the blankets is touching each one of those heads. So I'll just make sure again that they're just touching. And that should get rid of some of the overtones by basically limiting the amount of vibration that the heads can produce. They will still produce a nice punchy attack, which is pretty much imminent with the force of the bass drum beater, but we're limiting the amount of mid-range and treble overtones that come from the bass drum. So let me put it back into position. So there you have it, that big, fat, booming rock bass drum sound. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson on tuning your bass drum. And again, be sure to experiment, because every drum is different, every skin is different. There's a lot of different variables to play with, probably more so than on tom-toms. And probably as many variables as a snare drum. You've got the shell diameter, the shell depth, and the weight of the shell, the thickness of the shell plies, things like that. The number of tuning rods. Some bass drums only have 8 tuning points per head. And the thickness and the ply number of your heads, and whether you've got a sound hole or not. And just remember, what someone else says about your bass drum might not be might not be the sound that you want. So take advice from people, but in the end, keep experimenting and asking people about what they use for their particular bass drum tuning, and try and learn as much and experiment as much as possible with your tuning to really get the most out of your drums. So I hope you enjoyed the lesson, and I'll see you in the next one.